Hey everyone. So I wanted to talk to you about the basic mechanics of trauma therapy and healing. It's been coming up a lot in individual sessions with clients, and this goes hand in hand with the video of the real story behind anxiety, anger, and depression. And you can check that out, the basic mechanics of the nervous system, of what's going on with fight, flight, and freeze. And like I said, the real story behind anxiety, anger, and depression. So I'm going to remind you also of another analogy that we've talked about, okay? And that analogy is my body knows how to heal a cut all on its own. If I have a cut on my finger, I don't need to instruct it how to come together. I don't need to say, okay, cut, this part of the skin, come together with that part of the skin and stitch yourself up and start forming more cohesive bonds and things like that. I don't need to do any of that. My body knows how to heal my cut. I do have, though, some reasonable awareness, and I have some responsibility in the situation, in that it's my responsibility to provide the right environment for my body to heal that cut, which basically means I need to clean it, and leave it alone. Now, if I don't, if I'm sitting there going, oh no, I hope it heals, or oh man, it's getting itchy, and I start to obsess about it, and I pick at it, and I pick the scab, well, it's not going to heal. It may even get infected. It may even get worse. So I'm messing around with it. I'm trying to get involved in a natural process instead of just letting nature take its course. I'm messing with things, and that is going to either slow down or perhaps even prevent the healing, and perhaps even make it exacerbate the cut and the danger. So our nervous system has the same capacity. Our nervous system has the same capacity as our body's ability to heal a cut. This is all happens from the autonomic part of the nervous system, from the automatic part of our being. The same force that beats our heart, we don't have to tell it to beat. The same force that regulates the temperature of our body. Well, it's 85 degrees out. Well, my body likes to stay at 98.6. Well, who's in charge of it, staying at 98.6 almost all the time unless I'm sick? Well, that's the automatic part of my body. Well, the same part of my being that regulates my body temperature, that beats my heart, that heals my cut, that digests my food, that same part of my being knows how to heal my nervous system as well. If I have past psychological, emotional, spiritual wounds, trauma, that all have a physiological component to them. Of course, there's no separation actually between the body and the mind. That's a myth. And so what my job is to provide the conditions necessary for my nervous system to heal past trauma and past wounds. And what those conditions have to do with this window of thriving. We've talked about the surviving part of the nervous system and the thriving part of the nervous system. The surviving part of the nervous system being characterized by fight, flight, or freeze. The thriving part of the nervous system being characterized by social engagement at rest, when we're mobile, and when we're still in intimacy. For more detail on that, please, again, go back to that other video. I don't want to take all the time to explain those part of the mechanics. So this is a good add-on to that other video that I mentioned earlier, the real story behind anxiety, anger, and depression. Okay? So, but the basic gist of it is that when we're in the thriving part of the nervous system, when we spend more time in the thriving part of the nervous system, healing happens by itself. It's natural, okay? However, stuff comes up. And when we have an experience, when we have a difficult experience, or we have any experience for that matter, that experience is stored. When we are in the thriving part of our nervous system, that experience is stored in the part of the brain called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is responsible for storing chronological memory. This happened, then 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 this happened, and now here I am in the present moment. Here in the present moment, this is like a filing cabinet. It stores things in neat, concise, well-packaged files. The whole memory is stored together in an organized fashion, in order. And so here in the present moment, I can perhaps go back, open up the file, pull out a file, look at the memory, experience the memory, look back and say, wow, that was unpleasant, or wow, that was really nice. But either way, here in the present moment, my whole body, mind, and spirit complex knows that that experience happened in the past. And for that reason, even though we have past difficult experiences, they aren't triggered. And this is obviously a common term that people are very familiar with, but what does that mean? It means, to be triggered means that our neurology, our biology, our chemistry has been lit up by some present moment stimuli such that a past experience, our body goes into a state of thinking that a past experience is happening now. A past danger or threat or trauma is happening now. And it's not a logical process, it's not a rational process. In fact, because when we have an experience and our nervous system is overwhelmed, what happens is that experience is the hippocampus is shut down or is not functioning properly when our nervous system is overwhelmed, when we are in fight or flight or freeze. I have fight or flight above the window of tolerance, and in trauma therapy world that's called hyperarousal, when I am over-aroused, and freeze below the window of thriving tolerance, and that is hypoarousal or under-arousal, okay? But when we're in fight, flight, or freeze during an experience, our amygdala is not working the way we want it to, and those experiences don't get stored as those complete packages. They get stored as random bits and pieces of information, of experience. A sight, a sense, a smell, a body sensation, the way the light comes through the window, a heart rate. You know, as an example, there's something called state-specific triggering. So if I was overwhelmed during an experience and I had a trauma and my heart rate happened to be at 144 beats per minute, and then 15 years later I'm in the gym and have no conscious thought, no recollection of this experience, I'm not thinking about it, I'm not dwelling upon it, I haven't maybe thought about it in 12 years, but during that experience, when it happened 12 years ago, it wasn't stored in the hippocampus, and I am on the treadmill, and my heart rate hits 144, and boom, all of a sudden, my body goes into a state of thinking that it's in danger, and it starts to panic. I start to get short of breath, and I'm looking for the door. I got to get out of here, okay? That's what being triggered is called, and it can be a completely irrational, nonsensical experience, but a very real physiological experience. Because when these memories, these experiences, or bits and pieces and fragments of these experiences are stored, they're not stored in the hippocampus, they're stored in the amygdala. And you'll remember that the amygdala, from the other video that I talked about, the amygdala is the alarm switch. Why is it stored there? Because evolutionarily, we evolved so that dangerous stuff would get stored in the cues for dangerous experiences would get stored in the amygdala, right in the alarm switch, so that we wouldn't have to think about it, so that we would just react immediately to it. That's an important biological process, but it's become, and in some cases in our life, is very, very adaptive and very useful, but it becomes very maladaptive when we're starting to have a panic attack on the treadmill, or we're starting to, not have incredibly impaired functioning in our lives due to being triggered on a regular basis. So what do? Okay, so if we can get ourselves on, we have experiences that comes up, and say it's, oh man, that thing makes me just a little bit depressed, a little bit fuzzy, I start getting a little wonky, or man, that makes me a little bit frustrated or a little bit anxious. It's right on the edge of my window. Well, if I can start to practice to widen my window of tolerance and regulate my nervous system while having that experience, that triggered experience, then I will store that information back in the hippocampus, and it'll get filed away in a chronological fashion such that in the present moment, my whole being knows that that happened in the past and is no longer something that can be triggered. So what we want to do is slowly but surely in trauma therapy, widen that window of tolerance. Slowly but surely incorporate more of our experience into that window of thriving. Slowly but surely incorporate more of our experience into that thriving part of the nervous system. And we need to experience. We don't need to go searching for experience. Trust me, we don't need to go looking. We don't need to go in therapy. We do not need to go trying to go after experience. Stuff is going to come up. What needs to come up will come up in order to heal. Whatever needs to be healed will come up. But when it does, we want to have skills and tools to be able to notice, oh, I'm triggered. Okay, how can I now bring my nervous system into a thriving state and to basically digest and assimilate this experience into the thriving part of the nervous system so that it gets stored in the hippocampus. Okay? And so what we don't want to do, especially in life or in therapy, although sometimes the triggers will happen and it's not really up to us if a major one happens, but we certainly don't want to go after purposefully one that's way up here and that absolutely freaks us out and destabilizes us, because then that is going to just be another experience that's stored in the amygdala, okay? And that's completely counterproductive. So one of my first trauma therapists that had a major impact in my life, she told me, Michael, in trauma therapy, slow is the new fast. We go slowly but surely. Small incremental changes done consistently over time yield staggering results, okay? And so we just widen that window, widen that window, widen that window, widen that window, until eventually everything that we experience on a regular basis is included within our window of thriving tolerance, and we aren't triggered anymore. It doesn't mean that we don't have unpleasant experiences. It doesn't mean that when something is stored in the hippocampus, it didn't happen. We don't deny it. It's not that we can't remember it, but it's now lost its ability to absolutely destabilize us in the present moment, and it's now an unpleasant memory, okay? Last point I want to make, go to the gym. And what I mean by that is every single time you return, we can look at brain studies to show this, but the science of meditation has been known for thousands of years by human beings. And what that basically means is returning to the present moment over and over and over again. And people think, I can't meditate because my mind is too busy, I'm too distracted. But that really actually is not what meditation is. In fact, meditation is the practice of returning when we become distracted. Our fears, our anxieties, our worries, our sadnesses, unless there's something going on in the present moment, are based on either on the past or on the future. You know, anxiety is based on something not happening in the future that I want to happen, or something happening in the future that I don't want to happen. It's not happening now 99.9% of the time. If something dangerous and fear-worthy is happening now, I want my amygdala to put me into fight, flight, or freeze. I want that adrenaline. I want that extra boost to help me fight, run away, or hide. But most of the time, most of us are not dealing with present moment threats. We're dealing with past triggers, future anxieties. Every single time we return to this present moment, feet on the ground, body on the chair, air around me, sounds around me, breath coming in and out, in the tangible, visceral present moment, free from the stories and thoughts of the past or the future, but just here, raw, in the physical moment. Every single time we do that, it increases the size and processing speed. The hippocampus works like a computer. It increases the RAM, the memory speed, so that things get filed more quickly and more efficiently. So that's like going to the gym for your hippocampus. Makes your hippocampus stronger, but it also makes your amygdala smaller. So it's like building bigger muscles and getting a leaner tummy. Every single time we return to the present moment, it shrinks the size of the amygdala. And people that have a history of trauma or are easily triggered, they have an inflamed amygdala. It's actually larger, literally, and it's therefore more easily tripped. It's more sensitive, okay? The alarm switch is more easily tripped. So every single time we literally return to this moment, we increase the power of the hippocampus and we shrink the amygdala. until it shrinks back to its normal size, wherein it only gets triggered if there's real danger in the present moment. That's how trauma therapy works, and it can be a slow and challenging and scary and courageous process, but it's worth it to get back to this state of being where we're generally in a window of thriving 99.9% of the time, and every once in a while our alarm switch gets tripped for good reason in the present moment. And we can still honor and respect our past and the difficult experiences that we've been through, but we're no longer triggered by them because they're now stored adequately in the hippocampus. All right, I think that that's it. There was one more thing. I'm stalling because there was one more thing that I want to say, and I forget what it is. Let me see if it comes back to me. Okay, it's not coming back to me. I hope this is useful for you all. Keep returning. Oh, that's it. Keep returning to the present moment. If you are starting a meditation practice, mindfulness is actually not a good term in my opinion. It's really bodyfulness. It's being really fully embodied and actually out of our mind and connected to the sensations in our body. So if you're being bodyful and you're starting a meditation practice and you think, oh man, I'm distracted all the time, don't look at those as failures. Look at those as opportunities. They're opportunities to make your hippocampus stronger and your amygdala smaller, and they're going to help you along the way to healing and health and living a life of thriving. Not just surviving, but thriving. Love you all. Have a great day.